Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Leticia King, Fashion Director for the Rouge Collection magazine. I also want to introduce you to Mr. Gary Chambers. For those of you who know Gary, Gary is sometimes a hard pill to swallow. I've known Gary for quite a while. We fuss, we fight, we argue, but at the end of the day, we see the bigger picture every time.
I want to first of all thank Southern University for allowing us to do this forum. And Leticia is right, I am quite controversial, so some of these questions might, ruffle some feathers, but I'm going to address the controversy before we even get it kicked off about the governor's race, so we can let the air out of the room, okay? I endorsed Mr. John Bel Edwards. Mr. Edwards could not be here tonight, and we're going to excuse that. However, we must understand that just because we vote for somebody or endorse them does not mean we do not hold them accountable to show up when we need them. That is the bottom line. Now, I know you may not agree with that, and that's what it is, but we should respect the senator tonight because he is here. Okay.
However, it has come to my attention that Mr. Caldwell apparently does not feel the same. He has decided that you are not important enough to attend this forum. His decision is a disservice to this student body and all of Louisianians. I do not think we can have a meaningful forum when only one candidate is willing to show up and answer the tough questions. I will debate Mr. Caldwell anytime and any place he is willing to show up. If the university can get him to commit, I will be here to highlight Caldwell's failures and my plans to improve the Attorney General's office. It is not fair to you or the people of the state for Mr. Caldwell to avoid addressing your concerns and his record of corruption, nepotism, and cronyism. I stand ready to debate Mr. Caldwell, and I hope you'll be able to make that happen. Sincerely, Jeff Wayne.
And I can't help myself. I think it's a cheap shot to say that the other guy didn't come and he didn't come. I'm just going to go ahead and say it because I'm not politically correct. So, if somebody got a problem with it, do what you do.
So Gary, can I ask you, is it a cheap shot to say I came, but the other guy didn't come to my race?
Senator Vitter, now, I endorsed the other guy, and he's not here, but we're going to let him slide, because we really don't have a choice. But let me say to the students and everyone here, disagreeing with someone, and this is before we get into the questions, disagreeing with someone about something should be allowed. We should be able to challenge our elected officials and hold them accountable. If we don't do that, what are we voting for in the first place? You understand what I'm saying? And so for anybody who takes an issue with the Rouge Collection or myself for what we do, we are here to speak up for African American issues. This room is full because people care about African American issues. This is one of the largest forums that has happened this political season in the city of Baton Rouge because we're talking about the stuff that matters to black people. Am I right about it? Thank you for accepting the invitation. I don't know if you're going to be on the right side of all of this stuff.
But do I get an opening?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks to all of you for the invitation. I made a real effort to be here because I wanted to have this discussion. It's important. And I do regret, honestly, we're not having an exchange in a forum because John Bell passed on the opportunity. Apparently has a trial lawyer fundraiser tonight, so I guess we all know how we rank. But I'm happy to be here with you. I'm also happy to be here with a lot of students associated with the band. I'll give you my musical claim to fame. I grew up in New Orleans, and I was clarinetist in our high school band. In fact, who plays the clarinet up there? All right. Here's my lifetime brag. I was first clarinet in the De La Salle High School band when my classmate Wynton Marsalis was second trumpet. Unfortunately, our musical paths diverged after that, meaning he went to Juilliard and Lincoln Center and I did not. But I'm happy to be here nonetheless with all of you. You know, months ago when I announced my intention to run for governor, I said this would be my last political job, elected or appointed, period. And that's because I'm going to give it my all, get up every day to do everything I can for all Louisianians, from our best and brightest to our most vulnerable. And I'm going to be completely focused on that mission, not traveling to Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina or anywhere else. We have serious challenges in Louisiana, and I'm going to work with you, build a team with you to take them on. Now, I've always worked in a few steps. First of all, to be open and listen, to travel the state, to have open forums, town hall meetings, including many events and visits at Southern University, and truly listen to you and all the citizens of Louisiana, and I'll continue to do that. Secondly, you can't just listen in isolation and then go off and do your thing. You have to remain open and accessible. And I remain open and accessible. So many people have my cell phone number, have regular meetings with me, get regular input from all parts of the community. And that will continue to be a hallmark of my work. And then I will build a team and lead specific, concrete, detailed ideas to lead on the key challenges we face, like higher education, fixing the budget mess, building important infrastructure, including in Baton Rouge, and economic development. And I've put together a detailed plan. It's all at our website, davidvitter.com, to lead us in the right direction. So I very much look forward to talking about those key challenges.
Thank you. Mr. Willie McCorkle, we're going to let you take the first question on this one.
Good evening, Senator Vitter.
Good evening.
Question from the students of Southern University. Do you believe that the Southern University system is a viable system? And do you have plans to change anything regarding Southern University as we know it today as an independent system in the state of Louisiana?
I do think it's a very vital, important system, and I have no plans to change that system. I have a lot of plans to improve that system and to improve all of Louisiana higher ed. Those plans, again, are in my detailed overall plan called Together Louisiana Strong. It's all at davidvitter.com, and there's a specific chapter on higher ed, and I'd love for y'all to look at it. It starts with stabilizing the budget, so we stop death by 1,000 cuts to higher ed, including the Southern system, cut after cut after cut that we've experienced under Bobby Jindal. And I have specific reforms that will get us there, starting with undedicating other areas of the budget that put those other areas off limits. That's what leads to disproportionate cuts on higher ed, including the Southern system. I've proposed that, I've led with that. In contrast, my opponent has been in the state legislature 8 years. He's never authored a bill to do that, and that's the vital reform we need to stop disproportionate cuts to higher ed. I have a lot of other ideas to improve all of higher ed, including the Southern system, which I'd be happy to talk about.
Thank you. Continuing on higher ed, and higher education and health and hospitals bear the brunt of the budget cuts in hard times. And it is exactly what happened in the last 8 years. What will you do to protect higher education and health care from a disproportionate share of budget reductions in the future?
Well, Gary, the first part of my answer is exactly what I've said. I'd lead a budget reform effort so that we undedicate most other parts of the budget, because that is what has led to disproportionate cuts in higher ed. When everything else is off limits, then all the burden, all the cuts fall on higher ed. We need to stop that. I've led with that proposal. My opponent, again, has been in the legislature 8 years, has never authored a bill to do that. And then we need to turn to the tax side of the equation, build the base of our tax system, get rid of certain credits and exemptions and deductions that are unproductive, that are corporate or other giveaways by another name, so that we stabilize higher ed and all of the budget. But again, these detailed proposals are in our plan, but those are the fundamentals. Let me point out, my opponent is very good about saying he completely disagrees with Governor Jindal. He completely disagrees with that agenda. The record, his record, is a little different. He has supported and voted for 5 of the 8 Bobby Jindal budgets. 5 of 8. That has led to $330 million of cuts to higher ed, including the Southern University system. He has never proposed the essential budget reforms that I'm proposing. He's never authored that legislation. So I think it's very important to look at that record.
Thank you, Senator.
Compared to my concrete record.
All right, thank you. So I'm gonna ask you a tough question, and just stay with me because it's 2 or 3 parts. Do you believe in second chances?
Yeah, I'm staying with you, absolutely. Go ahead.
Do you believe in second chances?
Yes, I said absolutely.
Okay. You have, Louisiana is the prison capital of the known world. We have millions of people of all races locked up in Louisiana. You believe in second chances. Do you also believe that we need to do something about criminal justice and how many people we jail?
Absolutely, we need criminal justice reform.
Okay, and so part 3, if you believe in second chances and you believe we need criminal justice reform, why do you have an attack ad that says that John Bel Edwards is releasing 5,000 thugs into the streets?
Because that's what he said. Because that's what he said right here at Southern University, and that proposal is not responsible criminal justice reform. It is a highly irresponsible proposal, and let me tell you why. He came here to Southern University, and he pledged, and he used that word pledge, to let out, and that's a direct quote, let out 5,500 criminals from Louisiana prisons. Now that is not criminal justice reform. That is picking a number out of the air, pledging to do that without having any idea the seriousness of the offenders that would be involved or the seriousness of the offenses. I believe that is very, very irresponsible. That is not responsible criminal justice reform. To me, that's, quite frankly, political pandering. So I would never do anything like that. Can I finish my answer?
But I want a dialogue with you here.
Well, we'll get a chance to dialogue.
Give me an opportunity, because I don't want you to run all left field without...
Can I simply finish my paragraph?
Go ahead.
I'm going to lead an effort in criminal justice reform, not picking a number out of the air to say release 5,500 criminals. Experts, like the Louisiana DA's Association, say you can't do that without releasing serious offenders. Now, why is it important to all of us? Because we have a crime problem. And guess what? The crime problem is most severe in African-American neighborhoods. So this impacts all of us, and this is a public safety issue for all of us.
In the African-American community, with the height of all of the things that have gone on around the nation, the things that have kind of sparked Black Lives Matter, for people like myself, I'm 30. When we hear the word thug, and y'all older folks who get offended by what I'm about to say, please excuse me before I go ahead and crack this door open right now. When we hear the word thug, we hear the word nigga. And so when you put that in your ad to people like me, that's like saying, John Bel Edwards said he's going to release 5,500 new niggas on the street. Will you stand by your administration, by your campaign, releasing that commercial that is highly offensive to African Americans?
I absolutely stand by it because I don't think it should be offensive. Gary, let me ask you, when President Obama talked about thugs in Baltimore, do you think he was saying that was wrong? Because he used that word in Baltimore.
I thought he was wrong.
Do you think he was using the N-word, which is basically what you just accused me of?
I think, and I didn't accuse you, I accused the advertisement of...
That's my ad, and I stand by it.
But for African Americans, that's what we hear when we hear it.
Well, Gary, let me make a suggestion. Why don't you go to the dictionary? Why don't you open it up? Why don't you read what the word means? Because there is no racial connotation at all. Why don't you look at the ad, Gary, and see the visuals we use in the ad, and you'll see that they are visuals of black criminals and white criminals.
Okay. Well, that sounds that way. This spring, can we silence the room a little bit? We won't be loud. This spring, Baton Rouge General in North Baton Rouge closed its emergency room, combined with the closure of Earl K. Line Medical Center. This means that residents of North Baton Rouge must either travel to Zachary, for Lane Memorial, or Our Lady of the Lake on Bluebonnet to reach an emergency room. The longer distances and the people may need to travel could have life and death consequences. Do you see these issues as an important problem deserving a remedy? And if so, what will you do and how will you do it?
Well, I absolutely do. Healthcare is obviously a critical challenge, including here in Baton Rouge, and I am concerned about some of those recent changes. One thing I would do is dramatically expand and move toward a lot more primary and preventative care. We need better networks of primary and preventative care so people can get that care in their communities and earlier in the process rather than having to get everything treated in the emergency room. That usually lets problems grow and fester, which is very bad for the patient, and it's the most expensive way to provide health care for the taxpayer. So that has to be a key component of how we address health care. Now, obviously, you need emergency rooms for emergencies, and they need to be accessible. So I would absolutely look at accessibility for North Baton Rouge and other areas that are underserved now.
Okay. Governor General opposed the expansion of Medicaid. One of the principles that means for expanding health coverage under the Affordable Care Act. This decision has been denied to roughly 200,000 Louisianans access to medical insurance. Will you continue General's policy of refusing expansion of Medicaid, or will you accept the expansion even if it means accepting Obamacare?
Gary, what I've said from the very beginning of the campaign is that I would be open to the expansion if we can do it on sound Louisiana terms, not accepting the terms and mandates of the federal government. And so what many governors have done is enter into negotiation with the federal government about a so-called waiver to create a system that is truly fine-tuned and focused on their state. So no, I would not first day accept the Medicaid expansion under the federal government's terms. I don't think that'd be right for Louisiana. I would be open to entering into that discussion if we can do it on sound Louisiana terms, including having an insurance model, a coverage model for more people, including factors like that.
Do you think that under your term, in your first 4 years if elected, that you would accomplish that you would be able to accomplish?
Well, that takes agreement from two parties. So I would walk down that path, but I can't tell you what the federal administration would do.
Thank you. Mr. McCormick.
Senator Vitter, another question submitted from the students of Southern University regarding higher education. How many times since being a congressman have you visited Southern University at Baton Rouge? And what is your stance on the merger of SUNO and UNO that failed in 2010?
I honestly don't remember the number of visits, but it's been multiple visits and have all been very good, productive discussions. More importantly, I look forward to those visits in the future. It's going to be essential as we tackle and address the critical issues of higher ed. In terms of Southern UNO merger, I'm not proposing that in my campaign. I'm not proposing that for this administration. I've been specifically asked about that, and I've said I would not work to close down campuses. What I would do is work very hard to streamline all of higher ed in a productive way by consolidating certain programs and building real centers of excellence on each campus. You can't be a mile wide and an inch deep. And I think that has been one of the problems with Louisiana higher ed. Every institution, to some extent, historically, has tried to be a mile wide, and it's ended up being an inch deep. And so we need to focus energies on building centers of excellence, including here at Southern. And I propose ways to do that. And so that would be my general approach rather than what you laid out in the question.
Thank you. Next question. Too often when our college students graduate, they find much greener pastures in other states and we lose our best and brightest. What can you say will change under your leadership that will give our students more confidence that they don't have to leave Louisiana when they graduate in order to make a good living?
Well, Gary, I think for all the parents and grandparents out there in particular, that's what it's all about. Certainly it is to Wendy and me. We have 4 beautiful kids. In a lot of ways, our greatest dream is for them to have wonderful opportunities and be able to raise families in a great, safe, prosperous environment. And our dream is for them to be able to do it right here in Louisiana, because we're going to spend the rest of our days here. Ultimately, that's about building an economy, building great economic opportunity right here in Louisiana. That's what will drive talented young people being able to stay here. And I'm going to get up every day to serve all of our population, including our best and brightest, who we need to keep here, and including our most vulnerable. So that goes to building the economic development, the jobs environment we need here. How do we do that? Infrastructure. We're way behind on infrastructure, and that's become a bottleneck, pun intended.
Can you define infrastructure so everybody?
Highways, bridges, ports, waterways, the backbone of our economy. We need to catch up on that critical infrastructure, and I have an infrastructure plan to put more resources there, to put real priorities there. Again, my opponent has a very different record. He supported 5 of the 8 Bobby Jindal budgets, and every one of those budgets have stolen from the State Transportation Trust Fund for other things. We need to do the opposite. The last of those budgets, my opponent voted for only 11 cents of every dollar of State Transportation Trust Fund revenue went to roads and bridges. 11 cents on the dollar, that's ridiculous. My plan will change that. We'll change the litigation environment in our state. That really shoos away good jobs from Louisiana because of that threat of burdensome litigation, particularly in certain sectors like the energy sector.
All right, we're going to ask you 2 more questions and then we'll move on. The Center for Public Integrity gave Louisiana a grade F for its degree of transparency. This is in spite of our state's celebrated ethics reforms laws of 2008. Do you agree or disagree with the grade Louisiana got? Why not? And what will you do as governor?
I agree with it because we need significant ethics reform, and it's mostly in enforcement here in Louisiana. And quite frankly, I think Bobby Jindal's exercise in the first year of his governorship was all show. Didn't amount to a lot of substance. In my plan, again, it's all at davidvitter.com, I have a specific chapter on reform, making government truly serve the people, opening up government and enacting significant reforms. So a lot of the things Bobby has fought for several years. Much greater transparency, not using various aspects of state law to hide important decisions within the administration and regarding the budget. And I detail those concrete reforms in our plan. I'd love for y'all to take a look.
Thank you. Willie. More? All right. The last question. According to a 2009 study, the greatest disparity in wealth and income exists between North Baton Rouge and South Baton Rouge. What will you do as governor to make sure that the neighborhoods in North Baton Rouge are not continuing to be left behind when it comes to economic development? And I'll make that a 2-part. I've never seen Bobby Jindal in his term as governor address crime locally, and the governor's mansion is right here in Baton Rouge. Now, I know it's the mayor's job to deal with crime, and the governors typically don't want to overstep those bounds. But when the governor's mansion is here, shouldn't the governor be concerned about how the city that he lives in and where people come to meet with him looks like?
Well, I think he should be concerned about crime all over, including here, including New Orleans, which is facing a crime wave which threatens a big part of our state economy. I have a crime plan. Take a look. It starts with creating a whole new state police troop for those high crime areas, particularly in New Orleans, to help with that fight, because we're one horrible incident away, say in the French Quarter, from a big part of our state economy, tourism, imploding. I'm very concerned about that, so I have that plan. In terms of economic development, that's a great question too, and it's about how we grow our economy and how we make sure all parts of our state share in that growth. I have a record of doing that, including as the current chair of the Senate Small Business Committee. We've passed 24 bills out of that Senate Small Business Committee under my chairmanship on a fully bipartisan basis, including a Small Business Subcontracting Transparency Act, so that small businesses, including minority businesses, don't just get the crumbs by being 5, 6, 7 subcontractor levels down the totem pole. And that was important reform we just passed, including the Women's Small Business Ownership Act to bolster the Women Business Center program, including those programs operated by the Urban League. So I have a record in that regard to not only promote growth, but to make sure we all properly share in that growth.
You can give your closing statements now.
Great, Gary. Well, again, I thank y'all for the invitation to be here. I eagerly came. I'm sorry my opponent did not, and I'll eagerly come back because I think that is the essential first step to government. I promise to build a team that represents the best of all of Louisiana, to listen hard, to be fully accessible, and to take on all of our critical challenges. I'll get up every day to serve all of Louisiana, from our best and brightest to our most vulnerable. We're in a ditch right now, a ditch. But I'm just as convinced, in fact more convinced, we can not only get out of that ditch, but truly prosper with the right type of strong, proactive leadership and clear, bold solutions. And we've put those solutions together in our plan. It's called Together Louisiana Strong, and I'd urge you to, again, take a look at davidvitter.com and react and respond on an ongoing basis. Very much look forward to continuing this dialogue and continue this working relationship. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. We're going to